full of outstanding and world-class vision and world-class this.
I'm a real leadership geek, honestly. I've spent my whole career reading books and chatting to people.
I just find the whole thing and the announcement, the way it's been announced, bizarre.
If you could move away from a model where teachers are so intensely focused.
Good evening and welcome to Teachers Talk Radio. We are live and broadcasting out as usual across all of our platforms this evening. Thank you very much for joining us. I've got a really exciting conversation this evening planned. Before we get into that, a little introduction to what we're going to be talking about this evening and to Teachers Talk Radio in general. So if you're a first-time viewer or watcher, welcome to you. And thank you for spending a bit of time with us this evening instead of the football or whatever else you could be doing, or maybe sulking about the bad weather, whatever the different things that you could have been doing this evening. You're here now talking about AI and education. Now, to be fair, that is a very interesting topic, and I'm sort of buzzed about being able to talk about it a bit more this evening with an esteemed panel of guests who I'll introduce just in a moment. So what are we going to talk about this evening? We're going to talk about whether artificial intelligence is elevating practice or if it's just saving time, if it's just making things more convenient, or whether it's actually improving teaching and learning and improving the lives of teachers and students and actually enhancing in a significant way what is happening in schools. So that's really going to be the context that we're going to have this conversation this evening around. And one of the biggest things we're going to look into is what tools and practices are out there that can really help people to get the most from AI, but also to think about how it integrates into life in school rather than is an add-on or a bolt-on or a gimmick. So there's some of the things we're going to dig into. And I've got my wonderful co-host, who I'm pointing out the wrong way here, is Hannah Wilson, who's going to be, we're going to be dissecting this evening with three amazing panelists. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce each panelist. Alison. Alison, do you want to introduce yourself first to all of our viewers and listeners?
Yeah, thanks, Tom. So I'm Alison Loughnane. I'm the Quality Improvement Lead at Hotwood Hall College, and I'm the lead for a how-to platform. My background is education and childcare. I've been teaching and working with children with learning difficulties. So that's sort of what I've lectured when I was teaching, and I'm now in a non-teaching role, but supporting teachers across the whole organisation. Fantastic.
And Tamara?
Yeah, I'm Tamara Pierce. I'm Group Director, Teaching, Learning and Assessment at Middlesbrough College. So as part of my role, I look after teaching and learning, our teacher training programmes and digital innovation across the college. And I still teach. So I teach in our teacher training courses, our PGCE and CERTED. And previously to that, I taught A-level history and philosophy.
Amazing. And it's great to have a fellow historian here, because obviously typically historians know nothing about technology and wear tweed suits and are very good at writing on blackboards with chalk. So it's great to have you here tomorrow. You're bucking that trend with me, you know, so thank you. Jon, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jon Tait. I am Director of Secondary Education at Northern Lights Learning Trust. I've been at the Trust since September. Outside of that, I'm a speaker, writer, been teaching for, interestingly, so I said this the other day, and someone said nearly quarter of a century. It's like, wow, like that, it sounds horrendous, but actually, yeah, about 23, 24 years, was a PE teacher. That's kind of how I came into teaching. Don't teach any classes anymore, but when people say, do you miss teaching? I still feel I'm a teacher. I'm just working with head teachers, senior leaders, coaching teachers, and still making people better versions of themselves. They're just not 11 years old and handing homework in or forgetting their swimming kit or that kind of stuff. So yeah, a different kind of goal over the last few years.
Probably slightly more pliable as well on the whole than a class of year sevens, Jon, I'd imagine. Although maybe not. Yeah, I mean, the first time we met, Jon, I was the most ill I've ever been in my life. Just getting COVID, not that I knew it at the time, but I probably didn't make the best impression because I felt like I was going to die. At Bet Show.
It was at Bet Show, wasn't it? I think it was.
Yeah, I was just coming down with something, and I was like, I really don't feel well. But anyway, so yeah, it's great to have you all with us. I thought it would be nice to start off with just a general little chit chat about AI, really. It'd be nice, and feel free to jump in, all of you. But what do you think the best and worst things about AI have been? Because we've seen this massive explosion in the last year, let's say, maybe 18 months, something like that. It's just starting to really come into school strong now. So what do you think are the best and worst things you've seen with regards to AI in education so far? I'm opening that up to anybody.
I think for me, it's building on your creativity and just giving you different ideas and different ways at looking at the same thing, and giving you that opportunity to not always do things the same way. And it's, you know, in the click of a button with a couple of quick prompts, you've got a really nice different way of doing something and getting it across to your audience in a different way. And
the worst? Oh, go on, John. Are you going to go with the best again?
Yeah, well, I was just going to, it's interesting, in your intro, you kind of said we were going to talk about whether or not it just saves time or whether it's elevates teaching. And I think actually, if we can save time and we can give time back to teachers, they can repurpose that time by doing other things, by creating other resources or putting more time into this, or even just actually having some downtime to go and have some hobbies away from the job to then come back re-energized into the job the next day. So actually, by saving time, we can actually elevate teaching in the same way. So I think it does save a lot of time, but it also, as Alison said, it really taps into your creativity side and be able to, you know, come up with lots of other different ideas in a click of a button that are very, very quick. And I think sometimes the bad side of it, if I flip to the bad side, is that people think that it's just a robot and it's actually a copy and paste job. Well, actually, it might start giving you an answer, and then actually you then start to tweak it, change it, add something to it, but it gives you that starting point that you might not have had initially. So I think that's really, really useful from that point of view, rather than just seeing it as whatever it gives me, I'm going to use. Well, actually, it's a starting point like anything else, isn't it?
Chris has said, thank you for joining us, Chris. If exercise books can be used as an extension of the working memory, then AI is another branch of creativity that will be harnessed for the betterment of us all. It still requires a human hand, however. Do you know what? I thought I was reading 1984 then for a minute, Chris. Great comment. And you're absolutely, it needs to be harnessed for the betterment of humanity. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It's got a huge amount of potential and power. Has anybody got any bad things to share? I feel like we just, I'll share some bad things then. I think that, and we'll come on to this later, I think, when we talk about the dangers and the quality assurance involved, because this evening we've got a massive sort of opportunity to explore particularly the Teaching How2s platform when it comes to not only the way they develop staff, but also the AI assistant that they have present within their development software and within their sphere of opportunities they offer to schools. And I'm sure we're going to come on to this later with Tamara, well, we will, about quality assurance. But one of the things, just a general thing about AI is it does still need human management. It still needs checking. It still needs somebody to really dig into what exactly it's saying. If you don't have the domain knowledge behind you, if you don't have even the prompts need real sophisticated thought to really get the best out of it, you know. So I'll give you an example, and this is great because Jamie doesn't even know this. Last week I interviewed Jamie Clark on Teachers Talk Radio, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to have an experiment. So I got his book, which is here, and I don't have bookmarks, so I use Sweetie Packs as the bookmarks. And I got his book. I took pictures of each chapter and I fed the pictures into Claude, and I told Claude to take the book and create some interview questions suitable for a podcast. Now, I could have just done that and it rolled it out within 1 minute. It gave me 10 questions for each page in 20 seconds. So it took that page of the book, not me copying and pasting it into a document, literally a picture of the book, and then gave me questions for each page. Now, obviously, I still needed to check those questions to make sure that they were good, because ultimately you can roll anything out of there. But in the end, if you haven't read it, which I fortunately had, but if I hadn't, and I'd just done that without looking, then I think that could have been a real problem.
Yeah, and I think, Tom, you're right. It's that we need that base knowledge to begin with. Now, this isn't anything new because we've been doing this since for all of our lives. You know, if you go back to a calculator and putting a sum into a calculator and putting 3 add 3 and then getting 4,894 and then just going, but that's what the calculator said. You know, it's exactly the same idea, isn't it? It's that what ballparks is going to be and what am I expecting to get? And again, just like Googling something and then writing the answer, well, actually, you know, you need to be able to self-check that and QA it. Just as this, you need that base knowledge to be able to then say, can I trust this? Again, everything like we've been doing with Google, you know, fake news, calculator prompts, whatever it is this giving me what I actually think? And have I got that knowledge to begin with to actually QA it myself so that I know that if I'm asking it to write me something on this and it's bringing me some research back, is that research genuine? You know, can I find it? Or is it, you know, I've done it before where I've written things and actually it's behind a paywall. So therefore it's kind of it's no use, you know, actually, because if someone's going to look at it. So lots of different ways to be able to QA that, but we've been doing that forever. We just need to take that and not think that this is superhuman and not going to have those flaws, because it, you know, it will do at some point.
One of the areas. Sorry, go on. Sorry.
I just think it's managing staff expectations on that as well, isn't it? And students as well, because there's so much out there saying, you know, AI is going to take over, AI will get rid of teachers, and that is some of the conversations I have with staff on a day-to-day basis. By the way, we have the staff who really want to embrace AI and think it will revolutionize things, and we have the staff who, you know, it's hands off because it's scary, and it will take over. And it's maybe going down the middle of that and saying to staff, it can save you time, but it's not going to do everything for you. So, you know, you can get lots of tools that might plan a lesson for you, and that's fine, but it won't take all the time of lesson planning away, because there's still that human element to it, and you still are the expert, and you're still the person with that knowledge of your class, of your students, and of your subject. So although it can save you time, you know, there's our expectation of you. And I think we'll get onto that when we talk about quality assurance, but of us as leaders speaking to staff about time, and to students as well, because, you know, if staff are doing it, I'm sure students are thinking it'll just give them an essay last minute.
Yeah, and sorry, Tom, just to jump on the back of that.
I'm going to get a word in at some point. This is great. Carry on, John. Go.
I remember when I was big into kind of flipped learning quite a few years ago, and actually the idea of, you know, that YouTube video, kids watching it beforehand. And I remember there was a great quote by Bergman and Sams, who were the kind of pioneers of flipped learning, and saying that, because the same idea what Tamara was saying, that people were saying, well, is YouTube going to replace teachers? You know, and actually there was a great quote that if YouTube can replace you, then you need replacing. Like, you know, it should do. Like, if that's all you are, then you need replacing. We're far more than that. And it's same as AI. Like, it's yes, it might give you some prompts, it might give you some, but if that's all you are in terms of just creating a worksheet or putting it in front of students, then you need to be replaced. So I think we're far more than that, aren't we?
And I think for me, one of the other things that I'm getting a bit like Tamara is the fear factor from teachers that are worried that if they don't get on board with AI, they're going to get left behind and they're not going to be doing the same things as other people are doing. But, you know, they've got that fear factor of how to use it, when to use it, what it might remember, and all those aspects of it. And those that are worried about the pedagogical side of teaching and sort of thinking, is that going to actually undo what I've learned, all these skills that I've got? Am I going to be reliant on AI rather than honing my own skills? And that can be quite a challenging conversation as well.
Yeah. I'm going to get in before you, Tom. I'm doing my master's and I have some of the units taught to us online via bots. They are AI bots that read out and talk to us about the units. And I really hope they don't replace teachers. It is hard to kind of learn from, but then also I kind of do use AI to help me with my assignments. So, but I'm that person. I'm really nervous to do it in the classroom and kind of get it wrong or not kind of have the time to check it or make sure it's right. So I'm really excited to kind of learn a bit more about kind of how to make sure that it's right for teaching. And I think that's the bit that people are a bit scared of. We know that tool's out there and we know that it's big and scary, and it's like doing it right is just the key part, I think.
What we're going to sort of delve into in a bit, and we'll keep this sort of theme of AI going. And, you know, I've got a few more sort of questions to ask you about AI on a personal level as well. But Alison, we'll start with you, right? Because what we're really delving into here with the use of AI is teacher development. You know, I really want to sort of focus in on this area of teacher development. Now, one of the platforms that you use, Alison, is Teaching How2s. So I know you've sort of, you know, been using the platform at your college for how long?
For 4 years now.
4 years, right? So I wonder, because this is a great demo of not only AI, but how AI intertwines with teacher development. So I wondered maybe you can start off with, because obviously this predates AI. This Teaching How2s platform predates AI. So can you tell us, you know, pre-AI, how you were using the Teaching How2s platform and why you introduced it into your college?
Yeah, absolutely. So it really is a fantastic platform, and it's a great way of coaching and supporting new members of staff to the college. One of the things that we've run is a 10-week pilot program called Teaching at Hotwood, which is for those teachers that are newly qualified, early career teachers coming into college, or because of the need for lecturers within the trade industry and trade courses, we do get a lot of staff that just come straight in and they've no teaching experience. So this is an invaluable resource to support and help them with that. What's really good about it is it gives you the why to what it is that you're doing, and the evidence-based techniques and teaching strategies that a lot of us are aware of, but maybe don't understand the reasoning behind that. This shows you what that is. So what we've been able to do is, so what you can see now is like the landing page. So as a new teacher, you know, or anybody on the platform that's using it, you go on and you can see, you know, your own welcome message. But then we can create our own sets within there as well as what's already on there. So we created a set. So we've got various ones on here, but our Teaching at Hotwood program, we sort of found from the evidence-based techniques, which ones did we think for brand new teachers would be the most impactful on their teaching? What would be a quick response and a quick win for them to help them in what it is that they needed to do? So you can go on and, you know, there's various different things. So something new teachers struggle with is giving that clear instruction before the learners then do something. They're quite often nervous about what it is that they need to get across. So if I clicked on all clear for takeoff, that would talk me through and give me an infographic on how to model that, how to do some questioning, how to distribute the tasks. And it just gives you a really nice infographic, visual, quick 2-minute read of how to do that. Then you can delve into it a bit further, get further information on it, and you can sort of say whether that's something, you can set your own status. So you're in control of it as a teacher, as whether you are something you consider, something you're working on, something you're embedding. So you can easily change that from where you're up to. What's really nice about it is you can leave notes and you can actually have conversations with people across the platform.
Yeah, I've seen that feature.
It's a really nice feature. So I can go into the notes, I can write a note and I can share it, keep it private, share it with a colleague, share it with the whole college or even the networks. So Tamara, who's on here, you know, we're linked across the platform, so we could share notes across colleges from one end of the country to the other. But then I can go on and I can read how other teachers are using it. And I might not be confident as a new teacher to have those conversations, but on here, I've got that information at the click of a button really, really quickly. I
think one of the key things, sorry to interrupt, Alison,
no, it's okay.
One of the key things as well that you were saying earlier is you've got a lot of new teachers, haven't you? You've got a lot of teachers who don't have any experience. So presumably 4 years ago when you adopted this, and by the way, just for everyone watching, and thank you very much to Sagar, who was on TTR a few weeks ago, Michelle, Chris, everybody else who's posted comments. We will come back to them in a bit, but one of the things I was sort of getting at there is you've introduced this in 4 years ago. You've introduced it as an engine for teacher development, and what it contains, and I'm paraphrasing here what you've said, is it contains a whole plethora of it's not just about infographic. It's about a whole package of things that can help a teacher to develop themselves, but also for other people to work with them to develop. Yeah. And my question was more around, you've got a lot of teachers without any teaching experience coming in. So I'm presuming it's quite crucial for you in that respect.
Yeah, it absolutely is. You know, it gives us the opportunity to be, you know, we're a dual campus college. We've got 250 plus teaching staff, you know, and when we're getting, you know, we might have 30 new staff start in August. you know, and with a small team of support, we can't get to everybody at every minute when they need it. So this allows us to send those a nudge with a technique. So if it's behaviour management, you know, again, that's something that is crucial for new members of staff. We can just send them 5 or 6 different techniques that they can have a look at and think, right, how's that going to help? How am I going to use that? And then now that they've developed the AI assistant, we might actually be able to ask those specific questions within that. And it's going to give us ideas and give that new member of staff different ways that they can do it within, and they can contextualize that to what it is they're teaching and what their subject matter is, which is very different to what they can do on other platforms.
So we can see on screen now how, you know, you use one of these, you know, one of these sorts of, you know, if you like, what would you even call that? A sort of a infographic, or
yeah, the infographic.
Yeah, of one of the, and I know there are various techniques contained within there. They all base level techniques. They're all evidence informed, aren't they? They're all wrapped around sort of evidence informed techniques.
Yeah.
But I mean, are they a mixture? Do they go up in difficulty? Do they? Is it got everything in there? Has it got everything you want?
It's got. So if we go to the standard collections here, it sort of, it goes through different things. So you've got your introduction, but then there's a raft of different barriers to progress. So things that might be a challenge for you in your teaching. So you can go into that and think, you know what, something that I'm struggling is getting my learners to convert things into the long-term memory. That's crucial with exams now, you know, which are links again to AI, that we're going much more to that type of assessment because it's, you know, it's more valid and we're not worrying about the use of AI for plagiarism, that you can go on to there and it'll give you a raft of different techniques that you can use that as an experienced teacher, you might use some of the more complicated ones, but as a new teacher, you can find something that you sort of think, you know what, I get that. I can see how I can use that. I'm going to give it a go. Build the confidence up, and then hopefully they'll move on to some of the other ones afterwards.
Brilliant. Yeah, because I can imagine, I mean, when I started teaching back in sort of 2007, literally sort of the only real, you know, the only sort of thing you had there was your tutor at sort of university, you know, your PGCE tutor who came to visit you once every, you know, Christmas or something and said, you know, let's sit down for an hour. You know, and actually that level of sort of CPD available at the fingertips, if you like, and the ownership you can take from it, I'm sure must be really positive for staff, I would imagine.
Yeah, it gives them the autonomy to be in control of their own learning and their own development, you know, and how much they want to share with others is up to them.
What of the results? I mean, just out of interest, what of the result? You've had it for 4 years now.
Yeah. Obviously,
we're looking at the How2s platform. We're going to talk about some of the ways that it's unique. There's lots of sorts of tools out there, but How2s has a lot of elements that they see as quite unique. We're going to look at the AI assistant as well in a bit, in more detail. But I wondered, Alison, what have the results been for you after 4 years of using it?
It has had a huge impact. We've seen real growth and development in the quality of teaching and learning across the college. You know, we had a fantastic Ofsted last year where, you know, How2s was part of the conversations that I actually had with Ofsted inspectors because they'd heard staff talking about it.
Alison, you're banned from mentioning that word on
sorry.
any show that I'm ever involved in. I'm really sorry. We'll have to edit that and put beeps over it.
That's fine.
Just to warn you in advance, I don't want to have to shut down the show. But yes, carry on.
Yeah, no, I think the biggest impact is the conversations about teaching and learning that are happening in staff rooms now, where there's so many more conversations that staff are doing within the staff room because they feel more confident and they've tried something new. And we've introduced a framework of bronze, silver and gold champions of How2s. So people are wanting, we have lapel badges, they're wanting to get that. So it's part of it, it's inherent within everything now. You know, it's embedded with everything that we do, all the CPD we do, everything. How2s is part of that.
Do you think, just a general question, do you think, like, and this is open to everyone, including my amazing co-host, but like, do you think that every school now in the country is adopting a platform like How2s? Has that become sort of the way things are going now?
I think it's getting there. Certainly, there's a lot more. The community has got bigger and bigger and bigger, and I know that there's other things out there, and there's books and things like that. But they're not. You know, books are amazing. Don't get me wrong. I love books, but in this situation, a book isn't reactive. You know, you can't ask the author to suddenly change it and add something, which is what you've got through this platform. You know, they are reactive. In lockdown, they went straight into changing it to online teaching strategies for you.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so it's updated all the time.
Yeah.
Do staff actually use it? Do they log in and use it?
Yes, they do, and we can pull off a report. And I as quality improvement, I can check the usage of that. It's gone up every single year. When we send out notices on the community board, as soon as we do that, we can see that there's a spike. I can go on every day and see what interactions are taking place. There isn't a day where there's not staff using the platform.
Do you think, I'm going to play devil's advocate now. Do you think that a terrible teacher like me could go in there and tick the green button on every single strategy and put, I have mastered every single teaching technique there is, and I could put comments on other people's posts saying, I really like this, without even reading it, to sort of flag up to you that I've been engaged in? I mean, how do you make sure that, I know Tamara might want to come in on this as well, but how do you make sure that that's real and authentic?
You're seeing the evidence of it in the classroom. So yeah, there are staff that do that, you know, and will go on and think, oh, I've not been on for a bit, I better go on. But then you're seeing the evidence in the classroom of those teachers. The teachers that are using it and accessing it are the ones that we're seeing improvement in their development, in their results, in their engagement from the learners, in their attendance from their learners. It does evidence that in different ways. And then the softer side of it, like I say, those conversations and them coming to us to say, you know, oh, I've tried this how-to, or, you know, I had to go at something that was completely different. And staff are willing to invite us in to go and see them using those techniques, which, you know, for a quality team, you don't get very often, that they want us to go in and see how they're using those techniques in the lessons.
I can completely see the positive to this as somebody that was like a mentor for trainees for many years. And I'm like, oh, this technique. And then I end up lending them my book and they go and take off and look at that book. But it's nice that they can not only look at what you've told them, but essentially they can look at all the strategies around it and actually go beyond like your simple suggestion. But I'm curious, how does it work like on a whole school level? Can you set like a whole school focus and be like, oh, we're into questioning? Can you all look into that and kind of see what happens?
You know what I think what's just happened there, Hannah, is someone came into the office. Probably the person shutting down the college. It's like, it's 8:30. Don't listen to the site manager, Alison. Just stay where you are.
Just check the car.
Hannah, I can answer that one if you want.
Yeah, but can Hannah repeat the question? Because I lost the train of that question towards the end.
I was just asking in terms of a whole school thing, can you pick like, right, we're focusing on questioning and everybody kind of goes in and then picks their own questioning method, but you all have the same focus? Like, how does it work? Because I can see it really massively helping kind of trainees and ECTs, but how does it work in terms of like whole school and buy-in and all kind of looking at a similar kind of action point?
Yeah, so you've got the community notes. So I think you saw them on Alison's screen when she was coming through. So community note really is normally shared by admin. So you can see she's just looking at them there. And this is something that goes out to all of your users. So you can set kind of whatever you want, and you can link techniques to it. So we at Middlesbrough College, we do our how-tos of the month. So it might be a theme that we've seen coming out through CPD, through conversations with staff, through kind of floor walks, that type of thing. So for us, recently it's been checking on understanding. I think that's kind of a big one for anyone, to be honest. And so what we wanted to look at is that going a little bit further with your questioning. So we just sent out that note to everyone. I wrote a little bit of information around it and then linked the technique, and that goes straight to people's inboxes. And what's been really good for us is, because we are a really large college, is being able to have those conversations cross college. So I'll see people commenting back and saying, yeah, Tamara, I tried this one. Have you tried that one? And the good thing with how-tos is you don't just have to link to a how-to. So recently somebody shared a YouTube video based on a question one, like, yeah, actually, have you seen this on YouTube? So it's quite nice to be able to have that, but you can then bespoke it. So for example, our sixth form, they do their own community notes as well, so you can have it on all different levels. So thinking if like John, for example, could send one to the entire trust, and then different schools within that trust could send one out.
Can I ask on that front, because I know something that I've discussed on previous shows, that there's the difficulty of kind of necessarily getting a buy-in when you've got part-time staff and they might not work on days where you have CPD and doing that. Do you find that actually you're able to get kind of your part-time staff more involved and there's more like quality across all areas of your school?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's that kind of move. I think Alison talked about earlier, that self-directed CPD. One of my big focuses when I came into this job was moving away from CPD, which is, you go in at the hall, there's flip chart paper, there's post-it notes, and somebody's probably got some Haribo somewhere. Because I think it is then, even if you're not part-time, if you've had a bad day that day, you've got a lot of books to mark, all that type of thing, you're probably not going to pay as much attention, and it can't always be bespoke to you. But in this way, we can still share these things with staff. So what we do, if we do any CPD in person, we'll link to how to at the end. So if I'm part-time, and we do have quite a number of part-time staff, because in FE, our teachers tend to be dual practitioners, so they might own a hair salon, and then they come and teach a little bit as well. So we can just send that out to them and they can have a look, and they're still engaging really well. And I think they appreciate that on-demand side of it, which I think is why a lot of colleges are going for this type of platform and moving more towards self-directed CPD, which I think is a positive move for the sector as well.
That's brilliant. What I'd like to dig into now is the AI part of this, because obviously we've introduced this idea that, okay, school A, which is your school, Alison, adopts a platform called Teaching How2s to aid their teacher development 4 years ago. And then this platform grows and evolves. And as you said, it's work for your staff, it's work for you, etc., etc. But what they've now done is they've introduced an AI element to it. So, John, I'm going to fire this one at you, because you know what this AI assistant is that they've introduced. Now, this is where I'm interested, because there are a whole range of AI assistants. You only have to log into any social media site now if you're a teacher, and you will have an advert fired at you for an AI teaching solution to your life. In other words, this is now how you teach. So what I'm going to ask you to do is tell us a little bit about this particular AI assistant and what you think about it, and whether you think it's genuinely good.
Perfect. Right, well, hopefully I'm going to walk you through this now and do a walking, talking demo, really, I suppose, and do that. So, and I'll get to all your questions as I demo it, Tom. So I'm not shirking any questions there. But if I go down, so let's imagine, I've been working on with some teachers at the moment and ECTs on establishing routines. So I'm in the library, I'm in establishing routines, and I want to look at something like entry routines. Okay, so I click on entry routines. It opens up, and just as Alison was talking about before, we've got our infographic, and we can see that actually from a regular classroom, four brick walls, desks and chairs, which most people will be familiar with, we've got number one, which is our entry, so getting, greeting learners at the door, etc., etc. Number two is the materials, so tidily setting out the materials on a table near the door so individuals can pick them up. Thinking about your seating plan, number three, and then actually the desk work in terms of actually getting down and doing something. Now, I mentioned to you before that I'm a PE teacher, or I was a PE teacher. So when this was introduced to me, I was quite inquisitive about, okay, let's test this out then. Let's test out the AI assistant. So what happens is at the top of here, I've got the new AI assistant. So I can click on that. I'm just going to do that now. And it immediately brings up what subject are you teaching, an introduction to the lesson focus, and any areas of interest. So when I was talking to the company, to How2s, when we were looking at this, I thought, right, well, AI sounds great, but, it's sometimes sold as something that it's not. So I thought, you know what, I'm really, really going to test this. And I'm going to test it on a PE lesson. So what I would do is I'd stick in here that I'm a PE teacher. And I'm just going to copy and paste the lesson focus in here, but I'm going to read out, but I'm only copying and pasting it in for quickness, rather than me making a typo while I'm kind of talking. And what I'll do is I'll just show you what I've put in here. I'm just going to go to the start of it. So what I've said here is it's a year 7 swimming lesson, and I've tried to, as I said, make this as different as I can from that regular classroom lesson. I've then said it's the first swimming lesson of the year for this class. They're a mixed ability, and they're quite, as I move across, quite challenging when it comes to behavior. Keeping them on task is a challenge. So as we know, if you've used any AI, the output is only as good as your input. So I've put quite a bit of input in there. You know, I've said it's year 7. I've said it's their swimming lesson. I've said it's the first one that they're going to do. So clearly, if anyone thinks about that, it's quite a dangerous lesson. You know, you've got kids who are coming in who might be able to swim, who might not be able to swim. They might not have been in the school pool area before, and never mind, you know, one at a leisure centre. So I'm really testing what this AI assistant can do. And then at the bottom here, areas of interest. I can click as many of these as I want to, but I might look at potential challenges, because that actually might be an interest for me right now, that I need to think about the challenges that this is going to give me. So bearing in mind the how-to itself was just the start of a lesson. How do we get our entry routines correct? Yeah. And it demonstrated we were going to do desk work. I was going to meet them at the door, etc., etc. So I'm just going to click Let's Go now, and the AI assistant's going to do its job, and it's going to tell me how I should think about this lesson, but specifically for my year 7 first lesson of the year swimming lesson. So
but can I, before you click Let's Go, you've already clicked Let's Go. But
sorry,
on that bit, it said areas of interest.
Let me go back.
Yeah, I didn't understand that bit, because you put in there retrieval practice, but what's that? I mean, is that what that's going to generate for you, or is that what your areas of interest are?
It's just there's a series of drop downs here, so I can look at special needs, I can look at stretch and challenge. It's all different areas that it gives me some other interesting information, which I'll show you in a minute, on what I need to think about as well. Yeah, because I'm not going to click ed tech because I'm in the pool. Yeah. You know, so that's not necessarily going to be but it might be if I'm somewhere else. Yeah, so I'm clicking potential challenges. I'm clicking Let's Go, and you'll see the speed of this. So very, very quickly, like it's into it already. Like boom. I'm not having to wait around a few minutes or even seconds. So what it's saying is, entry routines is an effective technique. Yes, we know that. Okay, that's giving me a bit of a summary. Now, it's already given me the 4 areas I mentioned before that were on the infographic. So the entry, the materials, the seat, and the desk work. But actually, we're now looking at, in the entry, in the swimming lesson, have students line up outside the pool area and greet them one by one as they enter. Review expectations immediately, such as walking carefully around the pool area. Direct them to the designated areas and place their belongings before moving to the designated spot for the introduction. So it's really, really making it bespoke about the pool side. It then talks about materials. So it says, for swimming lessons, position swimming equipment like kickboards, goggles, etc. at a central point, like a poolside table, and instruct students to collect them in an orderly manner as they come in. This helps reduce confusion and sets a standard procedure from the first lesson. So again, it's talking about the first lesson. It's making it really bespoke about swimming. It knows that they're year 7, etc., etc. If I then go down to the bottom, I won't go through. Well, in fact, let me look at the desk work and the seating, actually, because it is very different to a normal lesson. So for pool-based activities, assign specific stations or areas around the pool for different ability groups. Rotate these stations regularly. Make sure students are aware they must go to their assigned zone quietly and quickly. In the pool setting for desk work, start with brief and engaging warm-up on the pool side or at the shallow end, such as light stretches followed by a recap of swimming safety rules and pool etiquette. So it's really, really good, and it's making it really clear. The applications then, we can then start to look at, so it's giving me some ideas to think about. Introduction of swimming safety rules, because it knows it's the first lesson. Demonstration of different swimming strokes, fun swimming drills. So it's really, really making this quite clear, and I'll demonstrate in a different subject in a minute. And the potential challenges that I said that I clicked the drop down. I'm just going to read this very quickly so people don't have to kind of zoom in with their eyes. One primary challenge a teacher may face when implementing routines in a year 7 swimming lesson is the unique environment of the swimming pool compared to a traditional classroom. The logistics of managing materials, seating, and entry in a poolside setting can be complicated, especially given the physical safety considerations needed. Additionally, managing discipline, because I'd said that they were quite sometimes difficult to challenging, and keeping a mixed ability, behaviourally challenging students on task, may require extra vigilance and creative approaches. Lastly, the aquatic environment limits certain aspects of techniques, such as desk work, which would need an alternative approach. So it's making it really, really bespoke to me, which is great. If I just go back to the routine itself, and if I just click on this again, I'm just going to now copy and paste something very, very different. So I'm now just going to copy and paste it from my notes. What I'm now going to say is it's still a PE lesson, but this time it's a year 10, and I'll show you what I've written here. It's now a year 10 GCSE swimming lesson. It's the final swimming lesson of the block. The group have been swimming for the last 6 lessons. and the class of very competent swimmers. So we've got a very, very different scenario, even though it's still in the same location. Okay, I'm just going to click let's go. And I won't spend too much time on this, but I just want to demonstrate the difference that it's not going to bring back. Hang on a second, there's an error there. Let me just click something here, see if this. Let me just refresh this a second. Technology is potentially letting us down here. Let me try this again. Here we go. So we're now talking about in the entry. If I just look at the differences, you could direct them immediately to light warm-up activities like a few lengths of freestyle to get them focused and ready to swim. So very different to that year 7 lesson that was the first lesson of the year. Students can collect what they need promptly as they come in, minimizing downtime. You can assign lanes based on the focus of the lesson, such as having advanced swimmers in one lane working on specific techniques, while others focus on endurance in another. So it's very, very different based on the fact that I've given it a different scenario. And lastly, before I come back to you for any questions, Tom, I'm just going to change the scenario completely, just away from swimming, and I'm just going to copy and paste one that says I've got a year 11 class who are only 3 weeks away from their GCSE exam. We're working on recall and retrieving key knowledge that may have come up on the upcoming exam, and students have been a little bit stressed about remembering key information. So I'm just going to put, let's say history, because I know that's your subject, Tom. I'll put history, year 11 class, 3 weeks away from their exam. It's the same how-to, so it's entry routines. I click on let's go. And hang on a second, let me just refresh that rather than. Come on. Always the case.
This is fantastic. This is like the best time that you could get an error message in the world. But I think just while you're doing that, John, yeah. I noticed from when it did generate what it generated, it looks quite good in the sense that it's quite teacher-centric, in the sense that if I went to, say, ChatGPT or somewhere like that, did the same thing, I probably need to put in a lot more prompts. I probably need to have more of a conversation with ChatGPT to say, can you talk to me about the seating? Can you talk to me about the desk work? Can you talk to me about the entry routines? Can you focus on retrieval practice or whatever? So it seems to be giving you quite a lot of information potentially quicker. I would like to dig into sort of the quality of the information it's providing, again, to sort of play devil's advocate and say, what, is that, maybe this is for Tamara or Alison to answer as well, is, are teachers able to take something from this on an authentic level and really use it? Now, I can imagine for a new teacher, it could be super, super useful and effective, but I'm wondering just for everybody, yeah. And how creative can you be with it?
Yeah, I think so. And I'll pass to Tamara in a second in terms of the kind of quality assuring it. But I suppose just from there, looking at that difference there, I've said the same thing, but I'm now saying year 11, adapting it, greeting students with a quick question related to previously learned material, jogging their memory, having essential revision materials like flashcards or practice questions ready to pick up as they enter. So it's given me some great ideas, very practical ideas as well, not just, make sure you retrieve the key information. It's actually saying have flashcards ready to pick up as they enter. Talking about modifying your class seating so we can put pairs or small groups based on their strengths or weaknesses. Desk work, themed quizzes or flashcard review sheets, possible adaptations. So the adaptations are really good because actually it's given me, 5 different things there. If I go from the bottom upwards, interactive games like Kahoot, practice exam questions, timed writing exercises, flashcard for dates, figures and terminology, group discussions, timed quizzes. So some really good stuff that allows me within 2 clicks to say, I've now got year 11 history 3 weeks before the exam and they're worried about retrieving information. And we've gone all the way from the year 7 first lesson and the swimming lesson. And I've got very, very practical information that is either going to be a light bulb moment for me to go, oh, wow, I never thought about that. Or it's going to go, yeah, I remember that. Or yeah, it's just giving me that memory jog of, yes, I know I've used that before, I'm going to use it. So I think it's great for that. And it certainly starts to save a huge amount of time. And I know now that the second or third year teacher in me when I was teaching 20 years ago would have said, but I bet this wouldn't work in PE though. Actually, now you put that in and it goes, yes, it does. Let's have a look at this. I was even looking at one earlier, and I was kind of looking at what I was going to demonstrate tonight. And I was even looking at whiteboards or, kind of things, and it was talking about, on the pool side or waterproof covers for things, or, it was really making it really bespoke when I was trying to really push it to something. So I think from a practical ideas point of view, it's absolutely brilliant.
I think one thing that we've tried to do is within, I mentioned before about our trades department, so plumbing lecturers, a lot of their teaching is done in a practical environment, and trying to get sometimes that pedagogy, even with very experienced teachers within that session, they see sometimes that the practical session is the practical and the theory session is the theory, and don't always see the correlation between the two aspects of it. And that's a big piece of work that we've been doing. And the AI assistant has been amazing in that. We gave feedback to Teaching How2s about, what could we have an environmental aspect to the AI. So now we can put in, just like John's shown in the swimming pool, we can ask it to use a technique in a plumbing workshop on cold water systems. I'm not a plumber, but I've been in a lot of plumbing lessons. And it will give them actual teaching techniques to do in that practical workshop that you've still got to do the sense check of, but it's harnessing that creativity, giving them ideas. And once they've had a go at it once, then it's like, oh, I've tried that. I really like what it came up with. I'm going to look at a different how-to and then go to the generator and then see what it brings me. So it's helping.
In the same vein of being like an art and a catering teacher, is there? Can you ask it to add in kind of safety precautions and point you to safety kind of sheets that you can add, risk assessments and things? Because quite often it's like, oh, wait, I plan a lesson, but then maybe I've forgotten one of them, and it's like kind of thinking that extra kind of mental load of having to think of every risk assessment for every lesson. Can you add, like, refine it and put that word in? I guess I suppose it came up on the swimming lessons. It's quite similar.
Yeah, Hannah, I think I mentioned it earlier, is that it's, as we know with anything, it's the quality of the input. So if you're actually, I mean, I'd said, year 7 first lesson. So if you're then saying, I have a year 10 history, I want to, or you're putting in that you want something on this. So the more you put in there, the more bespoke it's going to be in terms of what it generates for you. So it's all about the input. Now, clearly, if you just say, I'm a geography teacher, and someone next to you says, I'm a history teacher, you're probably not going to get a huge amount of difference back, because actually they're very similar subjects in terms of, a classroom-based, students sat down, you're not giving it that much kind of difference. But as soon as you start to add in year group, it's the 3rd lesson out of 6, or it's a week before this, or it's or straight after the summer, or I want to focus on this, or I really want to, you're then really making it work, and you're making it work for you. So like anything in AI, if your prompt is poor, the output is probably going to be bang average. So at best, so it's all about what I would advise anybody, and this is not just about how-tos, but work on making your prompts as good as they can be, and being very descriptive, and really not just saying, oh wow, I've told you I'm a PE teacher. Go into the year group, how many kids you've got, like really, and then the more you put in, the more you get out of it. So I think that it's just a case of making sure you're really clear with what you want it to do and what you want it to give you.
No, brilliant. I want to go to Tamara next, and I wanted to ask you, Tamara, based on what we've seen so far, how critical do you think it is to organizations that the use of AI is part of a teaching and learning framework? Now, Sagar actually asked a little bit earlier, he said, how would you all approach use and misuse of AI for staff and students, policies and AI framework, which is sort of similar to the question I'm asking about, sort of how is AI part of a teaching and learning framework for you?
Yeah, so I'll kind of start with the teaching and learning side of it, and then maybe go a little bit more onto, I suppose, how we've rolled it out, and that'll link to our policy on it. So I think that particularly for further education, we've been on a kind of a real journey recently into this whole idea of evidence-informed practice. And I think that it's certainly been the past few years in further education, that conversation around pedagogy. As Alison alluded to, we've got a lot of people who come in from industry. They are experts within their industry. You put them in front of a class for the first time and you start talking to them about pedagogy. it's not always the easiest conversation to have, and I think it's a brilliant move to really professionalise the FE sector and professionalise teaching and really uphold the standards, I suppose, if you are a teacher and you are expected to know how to teach and be passionate about how to teach as well. At the same time, we've got to look at the fact that we're in a teacher retention crisis. Teachers are leaving the profession in absolute droves. And why are they saying they're leaving the profession? And one of the main reasons there is workload. So you've got to balance those two things for me, upholding the integrity of the profession, but we can't have the integrity of the profession if everybody wants to leave. So it's looking at what can we do to help teachers to save time, but also making sure that really what's at the heart of it is the students, and we're not giving the students a raw deal in this as well. And I'll give you an example. When we were looking at different AI tools, because I suppose anybody in my position who gets told, like, here's this tool that will save the teachers all this time, like, yes, so it's absolutely great. And I was testing one of the tools, and I was like, right, okay. So I asked it to plan a lesson for me, one of my lessons, one of my teacher training lessons, and it spat out a lesson plan that told me all about the importance of differentiating for different learning styles, and it told me what to do for visual learners and audio learners and kinesthetic. And in my head I'm looking at it going, whoa, what is this? Now with that, the AI tool is only as good as what's out there on the internet. And one of my colleagues described AI to me as Wikipedia on steroids. It is, and as history teachers, Tom will know, we're always saying to students, don't just use Wikipedia, it can be wrong. And so my big concern with that is, if that's what one of the tools is doing, my nightmare is, do I walk around college, go into classes where I've got carousels of 7 different tasks happening, because that actually doesn't save the teacher any time and isn't really going to do what we need it to do for the students. So I think it's really looking at any platform that you want to use and thinking, does it fit with your teaching and learning policy, and not seeing it as digital innovation over on one side and teaching and learning the other, and the two never meet, but saying, what is the tool that we can use that fits with our principles of teaching and learning and how we want teaching and learning to happen within our setting. And what we liked about How2s is that, we're already using it, and we're already assured of the quality of the techniques on there. We've seen them happen. We've seen the impact of this happening within our classes as well. So when they told us that they were having this AI tool, it kind of solved that problem for us. But that doesn't mean that we don't need to quality assure it. So we still need to have those conversations with teachers. And I think it links to, there was an earlier question in the comments around training staff. You've got to train your staff on this. It might take a little bit more time for us as leaders and managers to train people, so it can have the knock-on effect of elevating that practice and have that effect of actually bringing the time-saving methods and still supporting the students.
I know, Alison, thank you so much, Alison, for coming. I know you've got to go now, so thank you very much.
Really sorry, I've got to leave.
No problem. Thanks very much. So yeah, totally agree with what you were saying there. Michelle has posed a question as well. Are teachers being equipped to use emerging technologies? It's important for school leaders to make provision for teachers to be equipped with the necessary skills to use EdTech effectively, which I think is a really strong point in terms of, we talked a lot, and you talked a lot about teacher development, use of AI, but, at the end of the day, if teachers aren't confident or don't know how to use the basic skills of computing, then it's like, oh yeah, use loads of AI, but it's not really effective, is it?
Yeah, I think it's, you've got to learn how to prompt things, haven't you? And it takes a while. And like with when John was showing you the tool, but if I'm a brand new teacher, I know we've talked a lot about brand new teachers, but it is important. We've all said we wish we had this when we were first teaching. If I've got to make those mistakes myself and go into this platform, it tells me something, the lesson doesn't work, and it keeps going on like that, it doesn't actually save me time, and it doesn't elevate my practice. So it's failed on both those sides. So for me, if you wanting to roll anything like this out, you've got to dedicate the time to training your staff on how to use it and making it as simple as possible, and also giving them, we give our staff prompt libraries, so that it's not just you're staring at a screen and it's that thing, isn't it, of the cursor's going and you don't actually know what you don't know. You've got to have those prompts. So we'll give them, if you want this output, have you tried doing this? But importantly as well, we've trained all of our managers, because it, you know, if managers are rolling this out and managers are wanting staff to use this, the teaching staff to use it, they've got to know how to use it themselves and all of the pitfalls. So that's actually where we started in training all of our managers.
Tamara, can I ask as well, because you said you had loads of AI tools pitched at you. So again, you know, genuine question, you know, what differentiates the Teaching How2s platform to the others in your eyes, you know, because you're using it. So
yeah, I would say it fits in with our teaching and learning strategy, and I think that's the point I was making before. Is it's got to be bespoke to that setting. You know, what do you want teaching and learning to look like, and which platform fits in with that? And what we really liked about How2s is, you know, we are a huge organisation with huge variation. We've got teachers that have been teaching 25 years. We've got teachers that are brand new. And so we wanted something that could be bespoke for all of those different teachers. And one thing I really liked is I know the strategies in there. I use the strategies myself within my own teaching practice. So I'm not having to worry that, you know, one day I'm going to walk into a classroom where there's this PowerPoint on the board and there's all these things going on, and then it undoes a lot of the work that we've been doing. So I think any tool that, you know, have those conversations with the people that pitch these things to you of how can you make this fit in with what we're doing, because if it can't be bespoke for you, then actually it's not going to elevate the practice in the way that you want it to.
And in that respect, is there a lot of support for you, like once you've started the package? Are there ways of getting in contact, and if things go, if you're not sure, or like kind of enhancing once, because that's the thing I find with these things, you kind of get introduced to it, you get the hang of it at the start, and you're like, okay, like I'm good with this, and then kind of the support goes when you actually want to learn about it and get more into it once you've mastered the basics and really get the proper quality out of something, but then that support's not there. Have you found that it's been really able to kind of really get the most out of it?
Yeah, I mean, the team are fantastic. So we have monthly calls with their director of partnership where he'll support you. You know, when we first rolled out the platform, so as I started, I think it was my second day, and we were told, you know, we've got this platform. We'd already had the platform, so it was thinking about how did we want to reinvigorate, because it wasn't being used particularly well. So Damien actually came down, Damien's their director of partnerships, came down and sat with the teaching and learning team and helped us create our strategy on what were we going to do. And since then, you know, it's those monthly calls to say, how are things going? Maybe, you know, taking something from other people, you know, Alison's doing this. Have you thought about that? And we actually have leads events as well. I think the next one, John, you might be able to help me on this. Is it next week, the face-to-face leads event?
Yeah, I think so. And I think just to back up that, and Alison said it before, that it's that online community as well. So yes, there's great support from How2s and from Damien and the team and Ian and the team there. But actually, that's great. But sometimes you don't want like the sales pitch, or sometimes you don't want, like, you actually want, like, I'm a governor at Middlesbrough College where Tamara is. So I reached out to Tamara a few months ago and said, like, you know, you've been using it now for, you know, X amount of months or years now, like, talk me through some of the things that actually you went through, because it's a bit like the curse of knowledge, that actually when you know it too much and you've built the system, it's sometimes difficult to explain it to someone who's 3 weeks into it. But actually Tamara had been there, you know, and Alison had been there. I'd reached out to Luke at York College and actually talked about, actually, how did you get staff on board, rather than just, this is how I think you should get staff on board from the company point of view. Actually reach out. And I think that's where the online platform does go into its own, and it's not just a book. Actually, there's that wealth of knowledge for networking around different schools, colleges, etc., to speak to practitioners and leaders of teaching and learning and leaders of trusts that have been there and done that yourself. And I think that's really useful. So for me, you get the best of both worlds. You get the great technical knowledge from the team and the expertise, and you can you can give them advice, and they'll make things and tweak things and change things and always update things. But the wealth of knowledge within the network of people who are using it as well is equally as important. I think anyone listening tonight will probably appreciate that. If they're a leader, actually speaking to another leader doing what you're about to do or has done that, I think is so useful, isn't it?
And it is teachers as well. Sorry on that. It's not just the leaders. The teachers have their own teacher events. It's kind of an online event where different teachers will talk about, this is how I've been using it, and I really like that, because it, you know, we can talk a lot about how leaders use it, but ultimately it's about the teacher, the person that can be by themselves in a class, and particularly if you are a sole teacher of a subject, having that community of practice and just being able to talk to people and hear about how they're using it. I think often platforms don't maybe put enough emphasis on that, on the individual teacher, the end user, and then being able to share that practice. And I think Alison talked about earlier the networks comments, but being able to do that and just comment out to somebody down the country saying, how have you used this? I think that's absolutely fantastic.
I love that. And just being able to, and actually the teacher, and sometimes they might be scared to say to SLT, I don't really understand, I'm a bit nervous that I don't really understand this, but actually somebody within their subject, they're more likely to maybe reach out and speak to. You said about making it bespoke earlier. Can you do that? I don't know whether it's possible. Can you like cheat the AI almost and be like, right, this, all our school is having this entry routine. Can you make sure X is always included whenever it gives you that lesson? Are you able to kind of
Hannah, are you pitching your own AI product that you're going to develop called non-negotiables AI? It's
I'm just going through my schools and thinking like, how can it apply to kind of the different schools that
No, but I genuinely do like the idea of non-negotiables AI. It'd be like, you know, like, when you type stuff in, it's like, brr, brr, this is a non-negotiable. You know, like the Daleks.
Because that's the thing, as a teacher, I want to make it bespoke, but then there's the whole school policy that I've got to is that kind of, that's the tricky thing of being a teacher. You want to autonomize it and make it right for you, but then you've also got to hit the kind of notes that your whole school are trying to achieve and be on the same page. You can't be that complete rebel teaching something else on the side. So I just kind of like, how do you kind of measure that in terms of making sure everyone's kind of on the same page, but also, like you said, like it is bespoke and like you get that autonomy. That's the thing with AI that I'm kind of like, where do you kind of get the nice, perfect dream in the middle?
I suppose what I would say there, Hannah, is that you get the best of both worlds, because ultimately you're clicking on a technique, so it's still giving you that technique, you know, in that, you know, like I showed you that, you know, it still had the 4 parts, the desk work, the entry. You're still getting the consistency of the technique. It's just making it bespoke, so it's not gonna send you off down a rabbit hole a million miles away. It looks very, very different. It's just going to kind of contextualize it for year 11 geography rather than year 7 maths. So actually, you're still clicking on that technique, and that technique will look quite similar. How you then put that across based on the AI is where the difference is. So that's where the consistency comes in. So it's not going to be a million miles away, but it's still going to give that creativity and it's going to be bespoke to each individual.
Is that, isn't it? It's making sure everyone's on the same page, and that those lessons do look similar when you walk in them, but they're actually are still unique to that teacher.
Yeah,
like,
because
this is such a great idea to do that.
Yeah,
with the AI,
you know,
I love it.
There might be, let's say, let's imagine there's 15 different techniques that that you quite like on or tend on a certain area. As a school, you might say, we're going to use this one. So you've already nailed that down and said we're going to use this one. And then each individual contextualize it with the AI. So you're still using the same one you want to, but actually it's just bringing it to life for the geography teacher in year 9 on the field trip when it's raining, you know, rather than, you know, me with flip-flops on the poolside, you know. So you can still nail it down by saying we're going to use these techniques, you know, or this is the technique of the month. This is the how-to of the month. This is what we're going to be working on. But then you're allowing the creativity within the technique just to contextualize it.
This is actually a really good question from Sagar, who, funnily enough, I mentioned this, he was on a couple of weeks ago. He works for a brilliant sort of company called Easy For You, who basically your tech needs can be catered for by Easy For You in terms of one-to-one devices and all the rest of it. But this is a really good question from that perspective of, what are the necessary infrastructure and technological requirements for successful AI implementation for school systems? Are there any? Are we, you know, okay, we've got our one angle, which is teacher development. Now, for that side of it, I understand that probably you're talking about an internet connection and a PC. However, I'm sure there'll be more to it than that when it comes to implementing the ideas into classrooms that the AI generates. For example, if an AI generates ideas that require technologies, then suddenly there's an issue there, isn't it? In terms of if the ideas aren't all paper-based ideas that are coming out of the AI.
Yeah, but I mean, that's the same as anything, though, isn't it? You can, you know, if it says you all need to use laptops and you haven't got laptops, you know, you're not going to have a meltdown and go like, this is not, you know, all right, great.
Yeah.
Let me change the prompt, you know, or let me type in, oh, that wasn't what I wanted. I'm now going to say, but I haven't got EdTech in the classroom. Like, you know, you then add the prompt to it. The other thing I was going to say, based on when I read the question in terms of infrastructure, is that a lot of it's in the cloud, so it doesn't need a lot of, you know, it doesn't need heavy kind of systems anymore and servers, etc., etc. But the one thing I would say, just for people to be aware of, is if you're going to start to use this, not just this, but AI in general, let's say, quite broadly across your school, is making sure that there is, you know, an AI policy, that you've got something that actually is going to say how we're going to use it, what we're going to use it for, what's the purpose, what we're going to do, where is some of that information, because it's all well and good saying, you know, thinking that like something like how-tos, or like something like Microsoft Copilot or something that I use quite regularly, you're just saying, write me this, do this, do this. It's not, there's no information about kids stored in there. But if you're starting to use it integrated with MIS systems, and actually, well, there's then a danger of, well, where's that information going? You know, what information am I sending? Because if you're sending up, or if you're putting spreadsheets in there and saying, right, here's my class data, now do this, then you're then starting to then worry about, well, where's that going and where's that held, and etc. So it's making sure that you're very clear about what we're doing. Now, if you're just starting with using an AI tool like this, or like Copilot, you've probably not got a lot of worries, because actually you're just saying, show me what a lesson looks like. If you're starting to then integrate a lot more data into it, that's where you need to be really, really careful and make sure your policies are aligned to that, so you don't come unstuck by thinking this is great and then finding that all these kids' names and their data is being shared with somewhere you don't want it to be shared with, you know. So that would be what my takeaway would be. And there's lots of great things out there. I know a good friend of both ours, Mark Anderson, ICT evangelist, has done a great a policy, you know, that you can look and take and tweak and adapt to it in terms of the use of AI, you know, in schools and that kind of stuff. So there's some great starting points out there, because it's not necessarily something that your LA or someone's going to have a kind of a, like the old school safeguarding policy that, oh, I can get that and I can tweak it. An AI policy might be something that's quite new, and not everyone's going to have one. So, but there are templates out there that you can use as a good starting point.
Yeah, and I think any AI policy, it's got to be flexible as well, hasn't it? I mean, we created our AI policy, and by the time you create it, it's out of date, because AI is, you know, it's constantly changing. And I think when we first created our AI policy, one of my big kind of flashing lights was this idea of marking. And I remember seeing, you know, people talking about, oh, how much time is this going to save with marking? But the only thing that I was worrying about is, you know, as somebody who marks history essays, like, yeah, wouldn't it be beautiful to never have to mark an essay again? But your number one worry is that's the student's individual work. Are we scanning individual work into something? You know, ChatGPT actually tells you that it will take that data and it will use it to get better. So if we're putting students' work, the confidentiality of that, but two, you know, there is a part of it, if we think about kind of adaptive teaching, that I've got to know my students, and part of me knowing them is me reading their work and understanding. That whole data confidentiality thing kind of then changed with ideas coming out from JISC around, you know, how do we use it for marking? So I think it's having that policy that, I mean, we call it freedom within a framework, that it provides a framework in which people can work, but never try and provide every single answer to every single scenario, because then you're just going to tie yourself up in knots, and it's not going to answer everything. There'll be a scenario that somebody comes out with that you didn't even think of in terms of that AI policy, but, you know, making sure your staff know it, making sure your students know it, and again, making sure your managers know it as well. You know, they're not encouraging something that actually isn't going to be an ethical use of AI.
No, absolutely. Just to say a big thanks. We're coming towards the end now. We've got maybe one or two more questions left, and then we're going to sort of finish off. But a massive thanks to everybody, because we've had 750 now live viewers tonight joining us on Teachers Talk Radio. So it's been great to spend time with you. Plenty of comments in the chat as well. So it's been great to sort of see people commenting, getting involved. We've had comments from John, Sagar, Michelle, Chris, Adam, lots of others coming through. So thanks everybody for engaging as well in the show this evening. Obviously, if you're interested in finding out more about what we're talking about this evening, and certainly from a teacher development perspective, then obviously visit teachinghow2s.com for more information to find out more about what Tamara and Jon and earlier Alison were talking about in terms of teacher development and AI. Because I think, reflecting back earlier, I think one of the things that this platform particularly seems to do is tie in authentic teacher development with an AI assistant, whereas in many other cases it would just be the AI assistant. There may be some nice parts to it, but it is fundamentally just, here's AI for teacher development. Whereas this is saying we've got a whole package that existed before the AI assistant, which we can then use to input into the AI assistant. So I think that's maybe something a little bit more unique about this compared to maybe other AI engines, which may I mean, probably teachers are going to use a range of tools, aren't they? You know, I mean, like Jon's just said, he uses Microsoft Copilot. You know, I use Claude, I use ChatGPT sometimes, but also if I was in this environment in a school, in your college, then I would happily sort of add that to my repertoire of things that I would use. I think that's super handy for that. Obviously, I've got a last question. Obviously, Hannah might have one too, but my last question was going to be around how well understood do you think AI is amongst the teaching leadership fraternity? You know, and you know, where are we at, if you like, sort of middle leadership, senior leadership, executive leadership? You know, where are we at when it comes to really understanding AI? Do any of us understand AI? I do believe, unfortunately, that probably in 3 years' time we'll want to delete this because things are just going to move on so fast and, you know, so quickly. We can't look into the future. We can only be in the now, and we can look for the best tools that we can use in the now. And I think this is an example of one of those tools. But where are we at with our understanding of AI?
I think we're all at different levels, aren't we? I think that it's like with anything. If it's of interest to you, then of course you're going to look into it a lot. But I think it should be something that interests every leader in education, because this is going to become part of education. I always kind of liken it to the advent of Google. You know, we can't separate Google from education now, because, you know, quite often, you know, for us, if I want to find something out, I Google it. It's going to become that. The AI is inseparable from education, not taking over from it, but inseparable from it. I think that there's definitely people who want to bury their head in the sand with AI, want to pretend that it's not here, it's not developing. There's people who want to wait and see, you know, like hedge your bets. Where's it going? Because you don't want to say something and then it ends up being something completely different. And there's those that are really embracing it. So I think we're on a journey, but what I would say for those of us that are really interested, we're learning at pace. And what I mean by that is my understanding of AI changes every single day. And I'm somebody who is absolutely fascinated by what AI can do for not just for teachers, but for students and for everybody in the workplace as well. Learning at pace, it changes all of the time. But I think for education leaders, this is a challenge that we need to rise to. It's important. It's going to change education. And, you know, 20 years from now, do we want to be looking back and saying, you know, we tried to say that this shouldn't be a thing, and we tried to say that it was a bad thing? Because it will become that kind of thing that's a little bit laughable. And I think somebody in the comments earlier said, you know, the AI, they want to be kind to it because of the AI revolution. And I always say that, you know, if they rise up one day, I always want them to think that I was their friend.
I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? I haven't come across any blockers yet on this. I haven't come across any doomsday merchants yet. I'm sure perhaps, you know, I'm sure there are leaders out there who have. I don't work in a leadership position in school, and I praise Jesus for that every single day. But I don't work and I don't have to manage. So, you know, with that in mind, you know, are there blockers out there? Are there people saying, you know, we need to stop this? It's bad news. And I think the only bit where I would go err a bit of caution would be creativity, you know, and thinking about creative teaching, which, you know, has got a bit of a bad press in recent years, actually, anyway, in terms of, sort of the tap dancing and sort of all that sort of stuff. It's all very, it's moved very much away from that. But, the jazz hand stuff. But I do think there is that element of, what we don't want to do. We want to use this to help. We don't want it to replace creative thinking and innovative teaching, because that's, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's, you mentioned the phrase non-negotiables earlier, and there is that concern.
She loves non-negotiables.
I think it's a routine. I'm like,
you just don't want AI to become this thing, where it spits out a PowerPoint, and then that PowerPoint is decided by somebody who's not necessarily teaching or not teaching that subject. It spits out a PowerPoint, and you just stand at the front and you deliver. Because the art of teaching, and this is something I'm really passionate about, is knowing your subject, being passionate about your subject, but knowing your students as well, and tailoring that. And I think it's important to say to staff, AI will never replace you. AI will never be able to be passionate about your subject and passionate about being a teacher. I mean, we're not in teaching for the money, the fame, the fortune, those things. We're in teaching because we want to make a difference to people's lives, and AI won't be able to do that. So I think there's the blocker for me, and the blockers that I've experienced when I've spoken to people about this is that fear. I think it's probably more of a fear than an unwillingness to do it and not wanting to. It's more of probably the hedging your bets. I think, wait and see. Let's see what happens with it.
The other thing I would say, Tom, is that there's always been a fear or a resentment sometimes in the profession for, we sometimes have to feel we have to plan our own lessons and plan our own stuff, and that if we're using something that we've got from somewhere or someone else has given us, we're almost cheating the system or cheating our kids. And I think there's a narrative around the fact that AI is, oh well, you're just getting stuff, you're not doing it yourself. But actually, if we then think about, well, if I don't have to spend the 4 hours doing that, and that can get it for me very, very quickly, and yes, I'm not going to use it like word for word, but if that stays with me 4 hours and I can then use that and develop that, then why would I want it? Why would I not want to do that? And I think we need to get, and this is not just AI now, but we need to get past us all as a profession, as teachers, thinking that we have to do this for our kids and be martyrs to that. Actually, if we can shave some time off and then put that time into our kids in a different way. And interestingly, I saw earlier today, I don't know, I forget who it was, but I saw it as I was scrolling through Twitter earlier when I was having my tea, and I saw something saying that AI isn't going to replace teachers, but actually teachers who know how to use AI might replace teachers who don't know how to use AI. And it was an interesting kind of take on it, in terms of, from an efficiency point of view, if I can do this in, 2 hours rather than 4 hours, or I can get a report to somebody by doing it this, actually I become more efficient, I become more effective, I can do more jobs within the time I've got, therefore I can do more things. So it's that idea of, being on top of it and using it to be more efficient, rather than it being a robot that's going to replace me. I know how to use the tools that can get me to where I want to get to quicker, with still the same authenticity that I've got, knowing my domain and the background, etc., but by not having to start from scratch all the time and go, right, okay, I need to clear the decks and spend 8 hours on this. Well, actually, I might get to that midpoint within 20 minutes and then go, okay, right, I can now shift it on from here, having had, the AI doing that kind of initial heavy lifting for me, which, and then I personalize it on top of that.
That leads very well onto my question, because I feel like there's two camps. There's the people that are really confident with AI and get the benefits, and then there's the people that are just kind of a bit hesitant. But the upside to this is the fact that there is that community and that like human aspect to it, because I think people shy away from it because there's people are kind of doing it on their own essentially, or the people that are just too scared to kind of dip their toe in. What's been each of yours best things about kind of getting involved in AI and using it? What's been the thing that's really kind of changed your practice, and genuinely just you really enjoy about using it?
I've probably
for me, it's been showing. Yeah, I was just, for me, it's showing people kind of for the first time what it can do, and then seeing that light bulb moment in front of them, and they're like, "Oh my word, this has now saved me, or it will save me." That kind of time point of view, and also the light bulb moment of it's not just coming back as a Google search, that actually everyone's getting the same thing. Actually, you're getting something as I demonstrated tonight, very, very bespoke, depending on the prompt you're putting in, and suddenly people going, wow, not only is it amazing, and it's really quick. It's saving me this amount of time. Thank you so much. You've now been able to save me across a week. Yada, 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 yada. And also the quality, going back to Tom's question right at the start, is it enhancing teaching? Well, actually, if you're saying, I'm a science teacher and I want you to give me a 10 question, multiple choice question, retrieval activity on this unit, and it gives you an amazing resource like that, and you double check it, and is that what we've done? Yes. Wow, 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 great. That's enhancing everything. You know, it's so I think that's when I see the difference, and that's when it makes me smile, when I see other people kind of, oh, wow, the difference it's going to make me, or the time it's going to save me. That I think is a huge one, because we know we're all time poor, you know, and actually if we can save that time on manual tasks that don't necessarily need me to come up with those 10 questions myself. Actually, you know, if the questions are great and I've checked them, right, let's do it. So that for me is the winner.
Yeah,
Can I just say, like, oh, go on, Tamara, sorry.
I think it's that kind of, to use it for like life raft for some staff, like being able to say to them, there is something here that can save you time, you know, like there is something that can read the article and summarize it, you know, just to give you a little bit of a start on that. There is something that can take that idea and contextualize it for you, and making staff, I suppose, seeing that smile on the face when they realize I don't have to spend hours doing that, and you know, maybe I can spend a little bit more time doing X, Y, Z. But just secondly, on a personal note, there is a tool which I find really useful called Goblin Tools, and if you tell it what you've got in your fridge, it'll spit out what you should make for tea. So I just think that's the best use of AI ever, and it saves lots of arguments with my husband about we don't know what we want for tea tonight.
Brilliant.
Amazing.
And that's a fantastic point to finish on. I just want to say a massive thanks to Jon, to Tamara, to Alison, who joined us earlier, for joining us. It's been a fantastic conversation. I've learned a lot myself. I'm sure Hannah has as well. It's been really enjoyable. So a huge thanks to all of you for coming on the show, and of course to the supporters on the show, which is Teaching How2s. And I think we've seen how powerful Teaching How2s can be in a school or college in terms of teacher development, which has been really nice to see as well. Have we resolved the debate on saving time or elevating practice? Well, we'll leave that to you, the viewers, to decide. And we've had nearly 1,000 people watching this evening. So thank you very much. Even if you've just checked in for 5 minutes, whatever the time you've been with us, really appreciate it this evening. And obviously, if you're watching this back, equally, thank you very much. And of course, to my co-host, Hannah, thank you very much as well. It's been always a pleasure. So just to finish off, before I go, it would be remiss of me to not just give a final mention to Teaching How2s and how you, our viewers, can find out a little bit more. There it is. You can visit them at teachinghowtos.com. The platform features over 160 visual evidence-based guides to teaching techniques, and also they run a series of regular webinars. If you want to find out more, completely free, get on there, have a look what they can offer. Teacher development, AI assistant. If you're looking for that whole school or college solution, then definitely check them out. Huge thanks from me for joining us this evening on TTR. It's been a busy week at TTR with about 15 or 16 shows. It's been great. We've got another number of shows tomorrow and the rest of the week to look forward to. Thank you very much for joining us, and we will see you very, very soon.